there was a researcher at Harvard, Ashley Whillans. She did some studies, and it turns out we actually have more free time than our previous generations did. We have lots of free time. It's just that we don't feel like we do because it's scattered in these little tiny pockets throughout the day. And all of the research around time confetti is framed in a really negative way. Like, why is time confetti stealing our leisure time? And why we can't get anything done? It's because our time is broken up. And I thought, how can I actually make this work for me as a working parent? And so what I teach is essentially we have a list that we make. Each person's list is going to look different. My list consists of things that are 5-10 minutes that when I do these things, I feel better. It either helps me work towards a goal or it brings me some regulation to my nervous system. It's an easy way for me to fit in self-care or exercise, like whatever we say we want to have in our life, but we don't have enough time for. Recognizing these 5 or 10 minute periods that naturally happen throughout the day and harnessing them.
Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life and marriage? Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. I am so excited to have Jill Wright back on this show because she recently shared a concept on her Instagram page called Time Confetti that I was just so mind blown over. And I just knew I had to have her on here to share about it with you all because I know there are people out there who feel like they're not either getting enough done or they're misusing their time because in the name of self-care, and they're going down that deep rabbit hole of doom scrolling or just, I don't know, losing track of time and wishing that they were really moving the needle more on their life. And they just get sucked into things. And so we're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff. We're going to be talking about time management, time confetti, also throwing in a little bit of late undiagnosed ADHD or neurodivergent brain stuff. And so thank you so much, Jill, for coming back on the show and sharing all of this with us. For those who are new to you, can you please let them know who you are, what you do, where you're from, and how old your kids are?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. First off, I'm so excited always to chat with you. So thank you for the invitation to come back. My name is Jill. I am Canadian. I have 4 kids. They are 15, 11, 7, and 5. And we have a lot of neurodiversity in our household. So I always love talking about that topic. I'm a time management strategist. I teach people time management in a holistic way where we get to consider not only productivity, but rest as well. And we're taking into consideration all of the pieces of your life that impact how we move through time, whether that be the amount of support we have, how old our kids are, what our personality style is. There's so many components. So what I love to do is work with people, one-to-one in schools and in corporations, teaching them how specifically they can make best use of their time and therefore expand their life in the ways that really matter to them.
Yeah, and I love that you included rest in there because we are coming out of generations that don't prioritize that and really frame being selfless as the number one goal, whereas we are entering in this transitionary phase where the generation after us is all about self-care, all about boundaries. And we're whoa, we're in the middle here. We were raised one way, but we see value in the way you're doing things. And we're kind of having a hard time reconciling, well, when are we a hard worker versus when are we sailing into burnout land, right? And so I'm really glad you said rest because rest is productive. Because if we keep going and going and going and not really recognize that we're approaching
burnout, then we're just useless when we're burned out until we recover, right? So then that's like unproductive.
Yeah. And I love that you've recognized that we're kind of this sandwich generation. Like we are in many ways, anyways, because we're helping our aging parents and we're raising our little babies. But I've never thought about the sandwich generation being caught in like in between two different life styles, parenting styles. Like the way that we were raised and our parents were raised was the same for a really long time. And now all of a sudden things have flipped and we're like, how do we bring this together?
Yeah. How do we do motherhood the way we want to? How do we have the marriage that we want to? Like you said, it was like rinse and repeat. Maybe a little bit of evolution with every generation, but not much. And now we're in this like gap period where it's like really big difference, because that's what I think is good about social media. There's plenty bad, but the good thing is that now we're exposed to what other people had in the know from their lineage that we didn't, right? Like my parents are immigrants. And so their lifestyle, their capacity to raise kids is so different than mine, because I don't have to worry, thankfully, about fitting in. I don't have to worry about acclimating to a new country, not knowing the language, having parents that don't understand how things work, having to figure out, how does college work? Do I go? How do I pay for that? I don't have any of that. Like all the resources are available to me. All the information is available to me. And I had parents, thankfully, who have navigated that on their own and taught me as such. But they didn't have the parenting style that I want for my kids. And so I don't blame them for not raising me the way that kids should be raised, right? But also, I'm like, well, shit, how do I do it? Because I don't have an example, right? I'm looking at these Instagram parenting coaches like, that's really nice. Let me see if I can do it. And sometimes I can't, because I'm just activated and I'm like, past the point that I can handle anything. But same thing when it comes to productivity. My mom is a fucking workhorse. Okay. She doesn't know how to relax. And I'm really grateful that she's in this era of her life where she's all about vacations. She's going on so many vacations. And I'm like, okay, you go, girl. You live your best life. Like that's how she relaxes, is by going on vacation. But like, I'm the opposite. I'm like, I can relax for the whole fucking day and I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good. And so I love that we're going to have this conversation about, okay, yeah, there's a time and a place to relax, but also we don't want to look back and be like, what did we do with our lives? Absolutely nothing. We were a couch potato. So like, how do we find the balance for ourselves, which is going to be different for everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right. There is a balance, but it does look different for everyone. And I mean, one of the tools in my arsenal that is universally loved and works is this idea of time confetti. So I would love to dive into explaining how I found, it's not my creation. I so wish it was. I read a book by an author called Brigid Schulte. It was called Overwhelmed: How to Work, Play, and Something When No One Has the Time. And in this book, it's a very like research-based time study book, but she references an episode where she was picking up confetti after her 12-year-old's birthday party, thinking like, well, this is what my time feels like. Like, it's just tiny pieces. It's scattered. I feel like I don't have time. And then there was a researcher at Harvard. Her name is Ashley Whillans, and she did some more studies into this idea. And it turns out we actually have more free time than our previous generations did. We have lots of free time. It's just that we don't feel like we do because it's scattered in these little tiny pockets throughout the day. And it's usually framed, all of the research around time confetti is framed in a really negative way. Like, why is time confetti stealing our leisure time? And why we can't get anything done? It's because our time is broken up. And I thought, like I do for all the things that I learn about, like, how can we flip this? How can I actually make this work for me as a working parent, right? As a mom who's also building a business. What do I do with this information? And so what I teach time confetti on is essentially we have a list that we make. Each person's list is going to look different, but I keep mine in my phone in my notes app, which I screenshotted and put online. Right now, my time confetti list consists of things that are 5-10 minutes that when I do these things, I feel better, right? It either helps me work towards a goal that I have, or it brings me some, regulation to my nervous system if I need that throughout the day. It's an easy way for me to fit in self-care or exercise, healthy habits, like whatever we say we want to have in our life, but we don't have enough time for. Recognizing these 5 or 10 minute periods that naturally happen throughout the day and harnessing them, that is my way to use time confetti.
I love that. And I think the key phrase here is that it makes you feel good. Because as women, we could easily say, oh, well, what I do is how I'm valued. And so I have to be productive 100% of my time that I am awake. But the key is that it makes you feel good. So it can also double as your self-care, your self-love, right? You are developing yourself or giving back to yourself in a way that revitalizes you. It doesn't drain your energy.
Yeah.
And the last episode that I recorded with Jill was about energy management. And so if you want to learn more about that, go listen to that episode. I'll put it in the show notes. But in a nutshell, everything that we do takes up our energy, but some things drain it faster than others, while others give us more energy, right? Think about things that you do for fun, like hanging out with your girlfriends and you're laughing your butts off and you're just like talking and chatting. That is like life-giving, especially if you're an extrovert. But things like folding laundry, if it's like the bane of your existence, it's like, oh my gosh, why does this take 10 times more energy, even though maybe I was doing it for like a fraction of the time that I was hanging out with my girlfriends? Like, what gives? That's all about energy management. Okay. So go listen to that episode. But I really love this concept. How long have you been using this?
Oh gosh, it's probably been 2 or 3 years now, or maybe
Amazing.
4. Yeah, I heard about this concept on a podcast. I think maybe the Happiness Lab with Laurie Santos,
So
and
good.
oh, so good. And I just got intrigued. Somehow, we always hear, all of us listening, all listeners, you're going to hear the same words that Michelle and I are saying today, but each of you are going to pick out different pieces that like feel relevant to you in this season. And if you came back to this episode, you would hear different things that were standing out for you because your brain is like, we have the RIS that's trained to find things that are important to us. So for whatever reason, when I heard about this concept, my mind was blown and I just went full on researcher into it. It's like, it's in my human design. Like
Are you 1-3?
I'm a 5-1.
Okay, I'm a 1-3.
Yeah. So it's just like, I could not stop myself. I wanted to know everything about it. And then again, what I do is I take this concept of whatever I'm learning about and I'm like, well, how can I apply this to me and help the other people that are in my community? So it's been a real game changer for me. I have completely reformed the way that I think about how I move through my day because I'm no longer looking at it as like wasted time. I'm not thinking about pulling my phone out when I have a few minutes. Like when my food goes in the microwave for lunch, I'm putting on Duolingo and I'm getting in the lesson, right? Like when I'm 5 minutes early for pickup at school, or if I'm waiting in line and the person in front of me has a million coupons at the grocery store, then I'm doing my gratitude practice. Then I'm, like practicing any spiritual practices that I can do that no one knows that I'm doing them because I'm just standing there, right? These little things. I always have a book in my car or an audiobook on the go so I can plug in and get a few pages read or listened to, because these are things that are important habits I'm trying to incorporate into my life. And otherwise, finding the time to do them is impossible.
No, I mean, I've said this time and time and again. We don't find time. We make time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not that you can just like create time, but if you really take a look at how you're doing life, there are pockets of time, right? So like you, I listen to an audiobook or a podcast when I go on my morning walk.
Yeah.
I am reading while I'm like having my lunch, right? Because that's like my alone time with myself is when I eat lunch. Even though both me and my husband work from home, like we have this understanding that we're like, this is not chatting time. We are not connecting. But I love the idea of like, hey, I have a few minutes here. I have a few minutes there. What can I feel good about doing with this time? And maybe one of your things on your list is literally just look around and like take a deep breath. That's okay too. But I love this idea of having options so that you can be intentional, because it's so easy to just be on autopilot and be like, yeah, I'm just going to stand here and wait. Meanwhile, on the same vein, I'm complaining about not having time to do things,
Mhm.
right? What if we just break things down? Like, how do we tackle goals in general? We break them down. We start with the end in mind and we work our way backwards. And to prevent like overwhelm, we break it into bite-sized pieces that don't feel so overwhelming. So over time, we get there, right? We get to that goal. And so I love that this like concept takes all of that in mind. And like for me, because I feel like I have ADHD, I self-diagnosed, okay? Like I'm going to say Instagram diagnosed. But it has truly helped me think of time differently instead of like, oh, I have to sit down and I have to have a half an hour to do this, or I have to have an hour. It just reminds me of like how I approach my marriage. There's micro connections and there's macro connections. Micro connection is kind of like this idea of time confetti. It's like the moments in passing. What do you choose to do? When you walk past your partner, do you pretend that they're not there and you like keep going for whatever you're doing, or do you acknowledge them? Do you go in and give a hug? Do you sit on their lap if they work from home? I tend to do that sometimes. Like I make sure he's not on a meeting or anything, and I'll sit on his lap, or have a quick conversation or whatever. Like, what do you choose to do in those tiny moments that can help you get closer to the life that you want?
Yeah, that word micro was coming up in my mind too. So I love that you said that. It's like taking advantage of the small moments that are happening anyways. The hard part truly about this is starting to notice them. But once you
Mm-hmm.
start to notice them, you're like, oh, okay. And it might occur for you in particular times of the day. Like your time confetti might always be, in the morning, in between meetings, or you'll start to notice these patterns. And the beautiful thing about having the list available on your phone or somewhere handy is that you're not wasting or squandering those 5 minutes trying to think, well, okay, I've got them. What do I do with them? No. You've been intentional. Your list is there. You've got it. And I would even venture to say it's possible to have multiple time confetti lists. So for example, I like a time confetti list that is like development or growth oriented.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a time confetti list that is updated daily with admin stuff I need to do. Like, okay, the project that got finished, it's due tomorrow, needs to go into the car so we don't forget it. Cool. The field trip form, that, permission form, I got to put that in. Great. I got to call the dentist and rebook that appointment. All of these things that literally take less than 5 minutes, but are taking up mental space in your brain. I have a time confetti list, and it's more of like a daily revolving list as opposed to a growth time confetti list where it's like the same things always. It's always the reading, it's always the podcast, it's always the stretching, whatever. And then another way that I really like to use this, especially for women who don't make the time to take care of themselves and find themselves burnt out, needing to go away for the entire night and book a hotel just by themselves so they can think, going on a girls' weekend, or needing to do like an extra long nap on Saturday because they just don't have it in them, right? Time confetti is a really wonderful way, if we use it for these self-care moments, to keep our bucket full, right? Because then we're giving ourselves the little pieces that we need throughout the day. And instead of going to empty, we're staying refilled with what we need that's important to us all throughout the day. And it makes a humongous difference.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that you have categories because, yeah, sometimes we want to hit pause on growth.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you think about nature, it's not constantly growing. There's winter. There's a time for pausing. There's a time for reflecting. There's a time for like blooming. And I think it'd be really awesome to have those different categories. Like it's just like mindless fun,
Right.
growth, house stuff, because that stuff adds up. I really love that you have that like admin stuff because I recommend to my clients first thing, the start of your week, whatever that day is for you, whether it's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whatever fits for you, you just jot down every single thing that comes to your mind, whether it's thoughts or things you need to do, because let's be real, the mental load can be pretty heavy for moms.
Mhm.
And at that time, you do something with all of it, right? If it's a thought, then you address it, right? If it's a toxic thought, then You help yourself think about it differently. Or if it's a to-do thing, then it's like, okay, you put in your calendar, when am I going to do this? It doesn't mean you're taking care of it right then and there, but you're assigning a day to take care of it based on your schedule. And so having it go down like on pen and paper, or in this case, on your phone, however you want to do your time confetti list, it helps you empty your mind because it's like, oh, I dealt with this. Not fully, maybe, but I've dealt with this. I've touched it. And so I can free up that space because I know it's somewhere else and it's going to come up again. Something else is reminding me, right? There's so much power to this side of technology with like reminders. I don't ever really want to remember anything on my own. Like I refuse to carry it in my brain if I don't need to. So I will literally I'm an Android person. So like I'll put in the Keep app, which is equivalent to your Notes app. This Sunday, as we're recording, is Super Bowl Sunday, but also right before it, I have a Valentine's Day thing with other moms and daughters, and I'm making a quiche. So I'm like, okay, on this Friday, I need to go to the grocery store and buy these things for both events. And I don't have to think about it anymore because I've already set it up. Like I had the thought, I put it down, and I get to release it. I don't have to keep carrying it with me until the actual event.
Right. That's so powerful. And it also ties into neurodiversity and how brains work. So I want to touch on that, but I just want to sort of acknowledge that you've given this tool to yourself and to your clients because it's one of the most important things to do a brain dump, get it all out, and then have a system for prioritizing it. I'm literally making a planner, an agenda, a calendar type of system right now. Yeah. And that's one of the main components of it is like have an area to dump all the stuff out of your head and then have a tool like an Eisenhower matrix or something to be able to prioritize that stuff so you know what you're doing with it. And some of it will go on a time confetti list and some of it will be scheduled in and some of it you can stop and just do right now. But the idea is that you know what you're dealing with because you've taken the time to just 10 minutes think about it. Right?
Oh my gosh, I love that you mentioned Eisenhower Matrix. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it is a great prioritization tool because as women, unfortunately, we feel like anything that is tasked to us or we task ourselves, we treat it so urgently, especially when it comes to other people. Maybe not so much when it's just us. But this matrix is basically like a grid where you get to dump whatever task or thing that you have and you get to say, is this urgent? Is this important? Is it not urgent? Is it not important? And depending on which quadrant it falls in, it's like delegate it, do it now, do it later, like whatever. And it is a game changer. I've recommended that to so many of my clients who feel like, yeah, I don't have time to take care of myself, or I feel so overwhelmed by life.
Yeah.
It's like, well, let's take a look at how you're thinking about what you're doing because that matters a lot. So it relieves some of that pressure.
Yeah, it does. And you're so right. And there's a lot of us who have more of a tendency to prioritize other people's stuff over our own
100%.
stuff. Like on my quiz, I call that the relationship builder time management style. It's like you never get to your own stuff because you're so busy responding to what everyone else tells you is urgent. So it's a good tool for that.
I love that. Okay, so let's give some examples. What's on your time confetti list?
Yeah, that is great. So always doing a Scottish Gaelic lesson on Duolingo because it's one of my passions, Scottish anything. And so that's really cool for me to learn. And also reading is always on there.
What are you reading?
I just finished 168 Hours by Laura Vanderkam.
Okay.
She is a time management strategist. I'm also reading, I think it's called The Power is Within You by Louise Hay right now.
Both very personal development-y.
Yes. Although I just went for a spa day with my girlfriends at one of those Nordic spa situations, and I brought the first fiction book that I have brought in a long time. It's the latest in the Outlander series. I've been keeping it sacred for a long time. There's that like Scottish obsession again, but yeah, it takes Diana Gabaldon so long to write a book that it's like, I'll read it and then I have to wait years for the next one. Anyway, so I'm on Go and Tell the Bees That I Am Gone. That is the current read. Yes.
I have a recommendation for you. If you are into like romantasy books.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. So it does have like fairies and like all
into it.
whatever. Anyway, I've been recommending this to my clients because it's got some heat to it, but it's also got action. And so it's called A Court of Thorns and Roses, or ACOTAR for short. It is a series of 5 books. I will say, like with any book, it takes a bit of build up first, like you got to lay the background first. But
Okay.
anyway, your husband will thank you.
Thank you. I'm thanking you in advance. The Court of Roses written down. Other things on there that I really like to put into practice are like just connecting with my own intuition. And I have sort of like a ritual or practice to go do that, which includes some breath work and things like that.
Yes.
I really love to do a quick voice note to someone that I'm close with, but I don't get to talk to all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I do either opening a window or looking outside or like sticking my head out a door to make sure that I'm somehow getting some fresh air, connecting with nature in that way. I've recently started doing shamanic drumming journeys, which is
Ooh.
oh yeah, it's a whole thing, but I can choose a drumming track that's like 8 or 10 minutes. So I can
Okay.
go and do this whole thing and be back in my body in like 10 minutes. Sometimes even on my time confetti list is scrolling, like mindless scrolling, because I
That's
don't
okay
allow
too.
myself. Yeah, exactly. As long as you're intentional about it.
Yes.
I don't allow myself a lot of social time on the internet. I do a lot of work, so I feel like I'm always on the apps for work.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just like to see what my friends are doing, you know?
Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure. So, what came to mind when you were sharing all of that is how powerful it can be to combine this with your own core values,
Yes.
right? So, for those who are unfamiliar with core values, these are values that you have within you that make you you. It's like your GPS. Anytime you feel off or unaligned, it's because one of your core values is being compromised. Like you're not getting enough of it, you're not nurturing it. And so, for example, a core value could be like adventure or connection or love, like those kind of things. Like they just stay with you and they define who you are. And you need to have each of those elements in your life at all times for you to feel fulfilled and whole. Okay. And so, if you know your core values, you could even have those be your categories. Because I heard you say, do a voice note to a friend. So, if connection is really important to you, like managing those relationships and making sure that they stay strong, that could be something that you do on a daily basis. Just pick one person that's important to you and send a quick voice note to let them know that you're thinking of them, or send them a reel or a meme. Like, I feel like that's how we communicate with our friends now. It's just like, hey, look. But I feel like that'd be really powerful to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it can be supportive of working in tandem with a habit tracker. If you've got these things that you're trying to make sure that you're doing every day, but if you haven't figured out like a habit stack or a way to really incorporate them yet, putting them on your time confetti list, they'll show up and be in your face every time you pick that list up.
Yeah. I've even had a friend, shout out to MJ. She is like super productive. Okay. She actually has on her screen, like her wallpaper on her phone, what she's doing for the day. And
Wow.
so I'm not on that level because I have like a rebellious side to me where it's like I can't even tell myself what to do for some reason. But having your time confetti list on your wallpaper could be really great too. If you don't want to take that extra step, you're like, well, I'm not going to go look for it. And so that's just like a barrier to me. It's like, what if you just do that?
So smart.
You know? Okay, but anyway, let's shift into talking about how neurodivergent brains work and what we can do if we are struggling with time management a bit, and like some tools that you recommend to help us manage it and not throw us off track and
Yeah.
feel bad about ourselves. Because I know that's a common thing. Is it compare and despair? It's like, oh, I wish I was as productive as that person. I feel like a bum, and all this like negative self-talk.
Right. And no amount of motivation can change it because it's literally just how the brain works. Whether we realize it or not, there can be a lot of shame if we view time and move through time in a way that is atypical. And a lot of us are just realizing in our 30s and 40s that, oh my gosh, we do have a different brain operating system than the majority of people who are teaching us about time management. And so
Yeah.
no wonder these things are not working for us, right? I have a child who has autism, another child with ADHD, and I'm dyslexic. So I have bits and pieces of information just from my own research. I am not a scientist or doctor or expert in any kind of way on this. But just like I do with everything else is I learn about it and I try to find a way that can be helpful to share with others. And so I've been doing a lot of research lately and a lot of one-to-one sessions with people who have ADHD, autism, ADHD, which means like both.
Both, yep. My
Um,
son has sensory processing disorder.
exactly. There are so many things now where we're recognizing the differences
Mhm.
and giving tools and opportunities for people who have challenges with time and different activities to give them a different way to do things. And so
Yeah.
the one caveat I will say when I talk about this is it is so individual and unique for each person based on their challenges and based on their operating system. But some of the things, like some of the reasons why you can struggle with time if you've got a neurodivergent brain is like it feels like either things happen now or later. Like there's
Yeah.
no understanding
Nope.
of the time where it might fit in if it's not now, it's later, right? A lot of people who have autism have autistic burnout or like sensory burnout. And so they just have this lack of energy, which really limits how they spend their time and where they spend their time, right? Alternatively, you might have a ability to really hyper focus. And so you can get in
Mm-mm.
flow and get
Yep.
so absorbed in the
That's
task,
me.
right? Yeah. And it's like hours fly by. You don't realize where they're going. And all of a sudden you're late for the next thing.
Yep.
There's also a situation that I hear a lot is that if something is scheduled for like 3 or 4 p.m.,
Oh,
you're
idling.
frozen the whole day
Yes, that's me.
because you're
That's
like,
me.
I don't know when it's coming and I don't know, I don't want to get absorbed. Like you're worried you're going to miss it, right? So that's a big concern. And it's called time blindness. You can't estimate how long things take or understand and feel the passage of time in a way that a typical brain does. So you're already starting like at a deficit. So you
Mm-hmm.
need these tools to come in like reminders, like analog clocks, because you can see it ticking, right? It's different than a
Mm.
digital clock. You don't get to see the tick and sometimes hear it. There are lots of different ways that we can utilize the tools that are available to us. And a lot of people have developed apps as well to help with this type of thing. But understanding first, like, where are those challenges that you specifically have? Like, are you always late? Are you unable to get deep into anything? Are you always deep into everything and
Yeah.
you find it hard to get out? Can you not multitask? Are you always
I'm like a
multitasking?
mix of everything.
And that's the interesting thing to me is like, what sort of variety are you? I think of it
Uh-huh.
like as a garden. Like, what flowers do you have
All of
in this
them. I got
garden?
all of them. Yeah, I have so many timers and alarms on my phone.
Yeah. One thing I recommended recently that blew one of my clients' minds was I'm like, instead of setting a timer for when you need to leave, set the timer for when you need to start wrapping things up,
Yep. Yep.
right?
I learned that.
That's
Yep.
a whole different timer.
Yeah, so like to pick up my son or to pick up any child, I have it like 15 minutes before I have to go because who likes to be told, stop what you're doing right now? Like, same for kids, right? We need to give them a warning, like, okay, 15 minutes, we're gonna do this, or, turn it off. We need the same thing. It's not like we're gonna be like mid cooking. It's like, okay, I'll just turn it off. Like, no.
Stressful too. You're like, what? I'm not done, right?
Yeah. And plus, like, what do I need to do to get ready to go? Do I need to like put my shoes on, grab my purse, fill up my water bottle, all that? Like, I don't want to feel rushed. I
Yeah.
hate feeling rushed.
Yeah.
Although sometimes I get stuff done really fast when I'm rushed. So,
Two sides of the same coin,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's just how you use it. I find a lot of people too who have brains that get distracted easily and they're
Hmm.
constantly like flipping from task to task. Um,
That's me.
yeah. And multitasking can be good for that. And time confetti can be supportive of
Right.
that. But
Right.
you might want to figure out the amount of time that your brain likes to focus. Like a Pomodoro method is a good place to
Yes.
start, 25 minutes.
25 minutes. Yep.
And because it's a short amount of time, but you know the break is coming. And so your brain's not like, I don't know, you know how much time you have. You can put a timer on and you know the break is coming. So if you want to work on the next thing because you're multi-passionate or you don't really feel like this task, you don't want to do it all day, it's a really great way to start to understand how long things take as well. And once you're in the habit of really understanding how long things actually take, you can start to write the amount of time next to things on your to-do list, right? Like, oh,
Hmm.
okay, I need to get the kids' lunches ready. It'll take me 5 minutes. But then you start paying attention for a week and you're like, oh, it actually takes me 15 minutes because I get interrupted and somebody wants another Eggo. And
Yeah.
okay. So now 15 minutes. And if you write that on your to-do list or in your calendar, you're like, oh, right. It does actually take longer than I thought.
Yeah. Anytime I have to go somewhere, I add 15 minutes to how long it says it's going to take me because shit happens.
Oh, always. That's why I encourage people to like book
Buffer.
the important things in the beginning of the week. Like
Yeah.
if you're in control of your schedule and you have some flexibility, like your three big frogs, your three big to-dos, the things you want to do, like put them on Monday and Tuesday if you can, because
Yeah.
shit's going to hit the fan and it's a lot less stressful to move something if your Thursday and Friday are open.
Yeah. Yeah. That. I've been learning to like leverage how my brain works lately. And it's just like so funny. We just have to do things differently because, things that we don't want to do, we really don't want to do. Right. And so it'll just like stay sitting. So like laundry, folding laundry and putting it away, that's like, I hate that. But I have learned that when my husband throws it on the bed and I want to get in bed, I will deal with it.
Right.
Unless I'm like super tired, then I'll just shove it into the basket.
This way.
But like 9 times out of 10, I'll just start folding just because I want to get in bed and I don't want to be like, well, like I just moved it again. And so that's been a really nice way to do things. Or like telling myself, I'm just going to do like this for 1 minute. And I know that I'm going to end up doing it for longer, but at least my bar is low and I will feel successful no matter how little I do it for. And so that's been really helpful too.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Have you heard of spoon theory?
No. What is this?
It's going to change your life. Okay. We don't have time to do the whole conversation today, but I'll give you the little tidbit.
Yes.
The idea is that in any given day, we have a set number of spoons, which represent our energy.
Okay.
And so if you have 10 spoons, today, it like getting the kids out the door might only take 1 spoon worth, but tomorrow it might take 2 or 3 spoons just to do that same task. And so understanding and looking at our day, like, okay, what does my day look like? Checking in with yourself. How many spoons do I have today? And like, how am I going to allocate these? Like, what needs to give? Where do I know it's going to take some extra effort? So I need to like gear myself up for that and get ready. But like using this idea of like, I can put a spoon here, I can put a spoon here. And if you go next level, like ninja level spoon theory, like how do I get spoons back? How do I clean them, put them back? What refills me, right? And so, yeah, it's a wonderful concept. I'm still doing a lot of learning about it. So I don't know like who made it up, but I know it's talked about a lot in the neurodivergent circles.
Oh, and that so goes in line with your energy management because I already do that for Tuesdays because Tuesdays are my crazy days with the kids at least. And so I try and do the least possible work-wise and personally, dinner-wise as well, because I need all my energy to be shuttling them to multiple activities after they get off school. And so that's just what I need to do. Like it's a simple dinner and my husband's going to make it and just like all hands on deck.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very
I love that you do that.
cool. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. People, please, please, please make your own time confetti list. Okay. This is what's going to help you feel really good about those moments in between. And if you're like me and you like struggle with transitions, this could be really exciting because for people with ADHD, the thing that motivates you is it has to be novel, it has to be interesting, it has to be challenging, or another one. Anyway, there's another one. And this could be your thing because you literally came up with a list. So it's all things that you want to do. And so it's kind of fun that you get to pick and choose, like however you feel in that moment, like, which of these sound most interesting? What do I feel drawn to do? So I'm going to make my time confetti list. And if you are doing the same, I would love it if you share with us what your time confetti list looks like so we can cheer each other on.
Share those. Take pictures, screenshot them, tag us because it also holds you accountable when you sort of like put it out there, right?
And you inspire your people to do the same, like let's win together. Okay. Like I recently came across a term like, like girl's girl, like when someone's like a girl's girl, like I call myself a mom's mom. So like We're all here to cheer you on. Okay, we can win together. There's like no judgment here. So like let's like what do they say? Rising tides. What is that phrase?
Let's all vote with
Floats,
yeah,
something like that, right? Let's all
Raises
win
all
together.
ships.
Let's like bring each other up. Whenever you learn something and you think that other people want to know, share it with me. I would love to do an episode about it. But anyway, on that same note, if you know someone that would benefit from listening to this episode, please share it with them. Better yet, tag us in a story. And then, Jill, how can people connect with you if they're like, oh my gosh, I got to learn more from her? She clearly knows her stuff.
I do know my stuff and I love talking about it. So anyone who is interested, send me a DM, please. I will chat your little ear off. On Instagram, Grow Like a Mother is my handle. And then my website is just my name, jillwright.ca, because I'm Canadian. And that'll link you to the podcast and share about the planner. Like all kinds of resources are there too.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thanks so much for being a part of the show again. Ladies, go check out the previous episode I recorded with her. Again, I will put that link in the show notes so you can go listen to that. And if you've been loving the show, I would so appreciate it if you leave a rating and review. Like that makes my day and helps people like you find this podcast. And that's all I have for you today. Go make your time confetti list and go live your best life. Go design your best life, because that's what you deserve. And I'll catch you back here on the next episode. Bye.
That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.